Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the webinar on new technology for service providers. People are still joining. I'm going to give them a few more minutes, and we'll get going in earnest. Again, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Look forward to talking to you guys in a few minutes. Hello, everyone. This is David Fries from Titan Cloud Software. Welcome to today's webinar on new technology for technology-enabled services, focused on how we can help service providers add value to their customers. I have hopefully everyone can see my screen. We're going to go through a deck, and then we have some demos to do at the end. Talk about the agenda here is about Titan, how Titan can enable growth for service providers, some new and updated technology we have to offer, demonstration, and we'll take Q&A at the end. During the session, if you have any questions, there's the ability through Zoom to submit those questions via, I guess, a chat window. So that should be how you do that, and we'll make sure we have time at the end to answer any questions you guys have. So again, I'm Dave Fries. I'm the CEO. I'm the Chief Product Officer. I'm joined here today by Clay Moore, my Director of Product Management. So my background, I've been in software for 30 years, building software, running business units at Silicon Valley, enterprise software companies. I've been at Titan about 10 years. And a lot of you have heard of Titan, and I've met a fair number of you as well. Clay, why don't you give a background about yourself?
Yeah, I come from a diverse background in programming. I've done a lot of development in regards to communication software. When I came in with Titan, worked with Veeder-Root, learning the gauges. I've dedicated a lot of my time with the maintenance and technician, in the petroleum industry, learning what they're doing, how they're resolving issues. And I've become a Veeder-Root and Franklin Fuel gauge expert, and basically trying to help design software that meets the growing needs of folks in the industry, especially someone that is out there in the field that needs better tools to get to the gauge.
All right. So let's kick off talking about Titan Cloud Software for folks who may not know, or it's always good to give an update. So we're a pure play SaaS software company focused on facilities with fuel. Again, we have the attributes of that: technology, player, one code base, one software code base for lots of customers, weekly releases. We can move fairly quickly. We're pretty agile. We're focused on software around in-customer fueling experiences, minimizing fuel variance and loss, and reducing environmental risk. At this point in time, we have about 50,000 sites. We're connected to about 30,000 of them. Our mobile inspection software is used for over 12,000 inspections a month. We have 10,000 users. So we have, lots of activity, let's put it that way. Most of you are either using our software as a customer, or you get notices and emails from our software if you're a customer, if your customer is a 7-Eleven or a Circle K or what have you. So we have 5 of the top 6 largest C-stores. You can see the logos to the right. We just added EG Group here recently. We also have large fleets like XPO and Enterprise and Hertz. We are, over time we have about, here's our service providers. We have a good roster of service providers as they are using our software to create value for their customers. They're managing the relationship. We're just the software provider in that scenario. In terms of manufacturers, it's funny, we kind of compete and we cooperate with the manufacturers. They used to really love us, and so they kind of love us now, but we developed software for Veeder-Root. Inform.net is our software that's being resold by Veeder-Root. Franklin Fueling has an SSA2, again, our software resold by Franklin. We've done some work for OPW as well over the years. So we're kind of the platform. These manufacturers want their equipment to work well with our software because we have so many sites, and that we get access to their engineering teams as we work through the various docu-bugs you might find in documentation. We have Franklin's proprietary protocols, so we can talk to Franklin's in a native format. The only people that can really talk to Franklin's natively, every Veeder-Root command known to mankind. So we're kind of in a unique position to manage the ATGs, get data from them, get the full information, the full power of those pieces of equipment. In terms of our products and use cases, really environmental, fuel, and facility are the 3 things we focus on. Environmental is our legacy, and our customers are using it to reduce risk, to comply with regulations, and to minimize vendor costs. They're trying to kind of create a common platform for all their vendors to plug into, whether it's inspections or testing. For fuel, inventory variance minimization is something we're very focused on. We have a new product category or product called frictionless fueling, which is how do I improve the output of every fueling position, dealing with things like flow rate and nozzles unavailable and tank shutdowns. And we have some kind of new analytics there that helps operators maximize the value of every fueling position. And then we also have a forecasting tool, advanced forecasting, delivery planning, so we can minimize runouts and help you plan deliveries. We're not creating orders, but we're doing the analytics around forecasting there. We're not dispatching trucks per se. On the facility side, we have a full facility management software package, work orders, assets, purchase orders, integrations with PDI, invoice approval. And where we win there is when when we have facilities with fuel and getting the information from the fuel assets, the IoT information from the forecourt, if you will, creates some differentiation for us and for anybody using our software. So recently we acquired JMM Global from BSM, a large telemetry company. And I just wanted to address that because JMM had both software and services. I think at the end of the day, we love JMM because they have the ability for us to offer platinum support services to customers that need it. Our model historically has been like 97% software. It's almost too much software. We have no capability to serve people that need handholding, that want us to answer the phone on the 3rd ring because we tell them not to call us, and that's kind of true. We're not ever intending to become or compete with a service provider. This is just they have some really good customers, longtime customers. They have some domain skill, and they have the ability for our customers who want to get more value out of the software investment to make that happen. We're never going to be a service provider. This is just instead of 97% of our revenue from software, it's going to be 93%. And for some customers that need handholding, that need additional technical support for the software, we'll now have that capability. And that might include the folks on this phone as they have some capabilities as we integrate our companies to help you out as well. All right. A couple more slides here, then we'll get into some of the demo stuff. The technology platform, we use the word platform a lot. We find, certainly from our larger customers or prospects, they like the notion of having one technology platform instead of lots of what I call point solutions. You know, EG Group likes us. I mean, everybody likes the fact they have one place, you know, where all this data is at, where everybody can use it. We have thousands of users. And again, anybody who wants to get value out of software would find it the same way. I think for a service provider, we can also be that platform for environmental, for alarms, for inspections, for work orders. You know, because we do the whole thing. It's not just a dashboard and reports, but we're getting the data, we're analyzing the data, we're creating, you know, is there something wrong? Is it a false positive? Is it a true positive? Can I triage it remotely or not? Sometimes I have to dispatch. I can either dispatch through our software, or we have APIs to third-party maintenance systems like a Service Channel that can be used to dispatch. But managing that entire process is of, you know, great importance to most of our larger operators. I think anybody who wants to reduce complexity and improve efficiency, this is something that resonates with them. I think as service providers, you have lots and lots of customers. Having a common platform to manage all the work you do for them, I think, is of interest. And we have again like almost a dozen service providers, and some of them have in fact used us for the core system for all of their customers. In terms of where we add value, I think there's three areas really. One is technology-enabled services. This is people on the phone or providing alarm management or compliance management or doing inspections or other things related to that. And we can infuse your service delivery with technology, so it's more scalable, it's more efficient. We have the most scalable platforms for alarms, compliance, and inspections. We have the most sites, we have the most users. We can create something that's white labeled with your brand or however you want to slice and dice this so that you can have your staff do this on behalf of your customers in a very scalable manner. Second area where we add a lot of value is replacing legacy systems. We've had some service providers that come to us and they, you know, 7 years ago it sounded like a good idea to develop their own technology, or 5 years ago, then no, shoot, now I got to keep up with the technology and maintain it, and hey, this version of Microsoft whatever is now deprecated. What do I do? It's not a place you want to be. If there's a commercially available software, you should buy it and let us deal with all that. And we do it for lots and lots of people. Focus on your core business of testing or dispatch or calls, whatever it is. So we can replace your legacy systems. Areas where we could provide the functionality would be testing management, maintenance and dispatch, a customer portal for all your site assets and reporting, even remediation. So I think we have a lot of functionality that you can use as your core system, replace any legacy system you have if it is in fact deprecated or going out of support. And the third area is just simply the more work orders equals more work for you. We have analytics that we've been focused on recently that drive. They're very high ROI, but sometimes they find something wrong that has to be fixed. Creates work orders create work for you. So those analytics include frictionless fueling, which is trying to understand why is a dispenser not working, that dispenser position, you know, fueling position, if you will, is not ideal. Something's wrong with it, whether it be flow rate or nozzle or tank shutdown. How do I fix it? I can't remotely triage it. I have to dispatch somebody. Perfect Gallon is really all around reducing variance to, instead of 1%, you know, maybe 0.1%, so 10 basis points instead of 100 basis points. There's lots of things that cause variance, and many of them also generate work orders. The tank shutdown, again, another point where something's wrong and it has a very bad effect to fuel sales, you want to fix this as soon as possible. So as soon as we can classify it as a true positive, we just dispatch somebody with all the right information and they fix it. So these are all, again, this is not the full and comprehensive list of things, but kind of 3 categories of technology-enabled services where you're already delivering services or you want to deliver services and we have technology to make that more efficient. 2, you have some technology platforms that may be out of date or they're not being maintained or it's expensive to maintain and we can do that better, faster, cheaper. And 3rd is just the analytics we have in the fuel areas drive work orders, which drives work for you to the extent that you could help us refer or resell those analytics, you'd be in a position then to just make more money and get more work. So that's kind of the 3 areas where we add value. And then if you think about the alternatives you have in the market of why Titan, I think if using us as a technology partner allows you to focus on your business, your service business. We're maintaining the software, we're taking care of the infrastructure, unlimited users, unlimited data. You know, it's a very good model. You just focus on what drives profitability for you. The growth aspect, second is just the scalability. We can scale up as many customers as you have. Again, we have, you know, like I said, 50,000 sites, 30,000 connected, 35 VPNs, 10,000 users. So we're able to scale, you know, beyond what anybody has individually and allows you to grow fast. And we have technical folks that can help you do that. And we have platinum support, we have technical support, we have all the ability to be your technology partner. And then thirdly, on the relationship side, we don't want to manage your relationships at all. We don't even want to talk to your customer. So we want you to manage that relationship. We can brand the solution, your brand. You're using our technology. We're a technology partner. We talk to you. You manage the customer relationship. And I think it helps you differentiate and, again, focus on long-term value of customers. So I've been speaking a lot here about why Titan, how we add value. I'm going to highlight some of these products, and then I'm going to hand it over to Clay, and we're going to go through some of the demos of some of these things and see how you can actually use them. So these are products some of you may be familiar with, but we continually update and make them better. Some of them have new major updates. Some of them have minor updates. They're all things that could add value to your service provider business. So the Alarm AI stands for Artificial Intelligence. Is actually a rules engine that allows you to classify alarms as true positive, false positives, based upon the contemporaneous alarm conditions there. So you know if it's a sudden loss alarm and these 3 other things are not happening and this 4th thing is happening, it's a true positive. And then you can prioritize it and escalate it, and it escalates over time because you got, you know, for those priority ones, true positives, you have to get them resolved. So it's kind of a very sophisticated way to kind of classify and escalate, and Clay will go through that. The mobile inspection app continues to get better and better, and really at this point we have every state form known to mankind, well known to the 50 states. Actually, do we have Alaska and Hawaii, maybe?
Yeah, I know we have Hawaii.
So we have, if not all 50, like 49 of them. For those monthly visuals, the software is set up such that you can create any form you want. We can help you do that. You can generate any PDF you want. So it's very flexible in terms of forms management, forms creation, and then allows you to basically fill out that form with any mobile device, whether it's Android or Apple. Important Dates 2.0 is just the next version of how you manage all the dates and when things expire, when testing's to happen, and it would scale anybody who wants to do testing management or compliance management. ATG remote diagnostics and configuration. Again, we have some differentiated capabilities around managing ATGs, both Franklin and Veeder-Root. Via the software, you can manage all the parameters as often as you want, and it helps you, again, probably avoid dispatching, and it helps you manage the ATGs, and because if they're set up wrong or the parameters are changed, it can have very bad effects. I talked about frictionless fueling, perfect gallon already. Delivery planning, we have some advanced forecasting software that's new that gives us kind of a best-in-class forecasting for fuel folks. So it might be useful to resell that because fuel is part of the buying process for sure. And then finally, activities and maintenance with APIs, just linking it doesn't have to be our maintenance platform, but any maintenance platform that supports APIs, which is any modern one, we can create that process management and that straight-through processing required to automate and scale. So let me pause here. I'm going to let Clay, you're going to go to Alarm AI first?
I'll hit Alarm AI first and just kind of follow down this list.
Sure, and we'll probably end, again, it's like 20 after. We'll do this for like half an hour, and then maybe the last 5-10 minutes take questions. So Clay, take it away.
All right, let me share my screen here. Okay. If everyone can see my screen, the first thing I really want to touch on is that when you're doing it as a service provider or as a partner, you may have clients under you. So this is like an affiliate level. So you may have different clients with different subscriptions where you're doing environmental for one and maybe advanced mobile inspections for another, and maintenance dispatching on a different client. So the view can really be branded with your stuff, and then the clients underneath would see your logos and have their own specific zones that can be managed. I want to touch on that first as I go into the Alarm AI itself. So on the Alarm AI, let me go back on the gateway. We have consolidated the alarm notification. And if you've used Titan, which most of you have, we are very big on profiles and templates. So you can define templates to do certain repetitive tasks in a certain manner, and you can build profiles to be able to set thresholds for alerts. In the alarm notification template setup, I'm going to pick on ISD alarms because if you can do California alarms, you can pretty much do every other alarm. So if you look, I went into this rule that I've created, and there are 4 sections down below where I can define the alarms themselves. So the alarms can be grouped by gauge type, even alarm category, even sensor category. And one of the examples I use on the sensor category is that if you have a sensor fuel alarm or a liquid alarm for an annular sensor, that may need to be treated separately than a sensor or water alarm for UDC. So being able to specify the sensor alarm category in the alarm itself you can better direct the alarm escalation and notification process. Of course, alarm priority as well as alarm types. Now, if you're familiar with the alarm types in California, like ISDs, there are certain ones that will shut down the sites after a prolonged period of time, like 1 day, 3 days, or 7 days. You may also see that there's a occurs with and does not occur with section, like occurs with any or all of these, because part of the classification process in the Alarm AI is if I have a PLD shutdown with a low product, that is really having to deal with supply. And so it's not a priority 1 that I need to dispatch someone out to fix an issue where the site's down. It is a call to the carrier or fuel supply saying that there's no fuel and I'm currently not operating because I'm out of fuel. So classification in regards to combining a PLD shutdown with a low product can be routed to the right people as opposed to a PLD shutdown with a sensor alarm where that's a maintenance and maybe a priority 1. Now down below, you'll see there's a alarm escalation time, notification after X number of minutes. When you set up a gauge to outbound alarm, you can also send it to outbound on a clear. A lot of times, you have an alarm that may occur and clear within 5 minutes. Well, maybe you don't need to know about that. That's just an active alarm. You're tracking the history. But alarms that persist greater than 15 minutes, you may want to escalate, say, hey, this is a real alarm, and I can wait 15 minutes into the dispatch. But in the example of the ISD, I've got it set for like 1,200 minutes. So there's 40 minutes in a day, you have 24 hours for these specific alarms. So I can escalate to the next notification tier or get someone else involved because the alarm is still active after, say, 20 hours, and now I've got to escalate it to someone to resolve because in 2 hours it's going to shut the site down. You'll also see that there's a create multiple alarms after a certain period of minutes. In a lot of cases, when you have a gauge set to a water high alarm, for example, the gauge will send the alarm notification once. well, actually twice if you're looking at water warning and then water alarm. But the gauges are only going to send that notification or alert that one time. It's not going to keep sending it. It's not going to remind you. You can also, by checking this particular box, those alarms of interest that you need to kind of, is it still active after 2 minutes, after 2 hours, after 2 days? You can still see those things so that you can escalate, get the notification. And we're going to talk about the actions of what needs to occur when you escalate it. Now, this is for the active alarms, but we also have the historical that we've tied into here, where we can easily copy from the active alarm profile, such as which alarm combinations and so forth. But here in the historical, I can create a workflow and notification and tracking, because in California or North Carolina, where you have certain alarms that you have to document, you did receive them, and what did you do with them? Maybe they self-cleared, but you've got to at least investigate why that alarm occurred. You can put this in under the historical. Under the historical, I can also suppress the number of activities, alarms, and notifications, because probe out, for example, could have go in and out of an alarm in 50 times in 1 minute. This allows you to kind of put the threshold to say any of these alarms classified in this bucket of alarms that occur within 15 or 30 minutes. I'm only going to create one notification and group these alarms as opposed to sending individual notifications. Okay, so the process is pretty simple as far as maintaining and the active alarm. Is it still active? If it's still active over a certain period of time, what I need to do. If it's a historical alarm, if it's coming in, why did it happen? And let's kind of group these so that we can really look at the root cause as opposed to 500 different notifications. Now, this is the alarm section where you create the rule, but you also can apply that rule to a location. That location can be a state, country, facility group, individual facilities. So sites in California can have a different rule than sites in North Carolina, or different SLAs for your groups of facilities. The one thing that I really am proud of here is the exception. So I can create a rule where these sites can be excluded during a time period, not just a date, but a date time. So if I have a testing vendor, or if I'm going to be on site and I don't want to have the notifications going off during that period, I could exclude these. I can also set a rule so that my alarms go to a certain person during the day, and then after hours, it would automatically roll over to, say, a service provider. So you can set these rules as far as who gets what alarms and when, either in individual site or in mass. Okay? This is where we get into the actions. Now, the actions themselves can be defined based on subscription, and you can look at active or historical. But those subscriptions can be an activity where you've defined a workflow. An activity is a predecessor, perhaps, to an actual dispatch to a work order. And then you have an email, where I can actually email a notification, and I can formulate that email via template to have all the content and context of the alarm information and any other reference information in that one email correspondence. The activity does something similar, but one is just an email, the other is an activity where you need to follow up on. And of course, then you have work orders, where we can use the work order template to automatically populate and dispatch to the vendor, primary or secondary vendor that is associated to the facility that the alarm is occurring. Okay? At this point, and usually in my demo, Dave, I usually like any questions on the alarm, because I know I covered a tremendous amount of stuff there. So I guess we'll get questions at the end, but the alarm notification is really designed around being able to classify the alarm and route the alarm based on the combination of other alarms, the escalation and aging of the alarm, so that it may be a priority 2, but if a priority 2 is not dealt with in 3 weeks, that may need to be escalated to a priority 1 so that you can make sure you have release detection.
I mean, the simple, economics of this, so theoretically you set this up right, or not theoretically, but for certain our customers are using this, you can manage alarms with fewer people. So that improves your productivity if you're an alarm management service. It's just, more profitable to use it with software. Again, the technology-enabled services inject as much technology as you can into the workflow. That's what we're trying to do here.
Okay. What's the next category there, Dave?
It was
AFI.
AFI, yeah, inspections.
Okay. So I'm not sure how many people have actually used our inspection app, but I want to kind of cover some of the basics. From a visual inspection setup, let's see. We have tremendous amount of forms already set up.
How many total do we have there on the bottom?
This is just in demo. We have the library, which we've got a couple of hundred in the library.
So 200 forms already done, so you can have an inspection, the form's already there, or if there's a regulatory agency that needs it. Again, a lot of it's a painful exercise, but we've done it, and you guys, service providers, can benefit from it. Kind of any state form is pretty much there.
Yeah. Well, as we go through this, you'll see that, like in the form itself, I can attach this form or the answers and map it to an actual PDF, such as a monthly compliance checklist or a annual report. I can map the fields that are gathered through the mobile app and populate on the actual PDF, which I'll show in just a moment. But I wanted to start in the setup where you can define the grouping, the categories, and even the questions. So when I come down to the questions, under the question itself, I can designate many things such as, is it required? Based on the answer, do I want them to take a picture and document additional information? So I have that whole decision tree from that question. Do I need other responses or other things which are happening here? I can also, hide it, show it on the regulatory report. I can associate it to other things. So you have full customization as far as based on the answer. If you want to be able to generate an activity, I want to alert someone. And that's really where we get from a mobile access where it's easy to put it in and make the user or whoever the technician at the site doing the survey to easily get that information into the system in a meaningful form where if there's a deficiency, that deficiency is tracked, work order is generated, the work activity is generated, and resolution of what was done to repair is there. At the same time, you have trend reporting. So here's on the setup, but you'll see there's a whole section under let's see if I can speak here, the inspection trend reporting, AFI trend reporting. We have a tremendous amount of reporting in regards to the trend. Right. So if you're seeing like a client that has lots of UDCs that have water or a little weepage, you have that, and you can do some preventative maintenance programs with those. So some of those AFI things may be better to demo directly with a client, but I'll go directly to a facility, and you can see under the e-processing, those inspections will come in real time, and if I want to hit a print view, I can do it on the actual state form. If I want to add a new inspection, it's easy to be done through the browser or an actual mobile app itself. Okay. Just kind of hitting hard level there is something that most everyone are asking. How do I take care of my monthly inspections? All right, what's the next one there, Dave?
So we did important dates 2.0.
Okay. So important dates 2.0. I'm going to start back one step higher under facility requirements. One of the things that most service providers are doing, because they are servicing their clients, is tracking when their testing is due, when I need to go back out there, what's happening, as well as what facilities may have which specific requirements. So you see I've got an AFI rule where I can say this rule applies to these facilities or this group, such as California, maybe a central region, or even Georgia. I can define the requirements for these facilities. And that could be consisting of permits, testing, important dates, whatever it is. So on the facility level, I'm going to go to the same site 04 that I was just looking at. On the facility level, under the activities, under important dates 2.0, we have completed the mapping in regards to how these interact with third-party vendor testing that comes in, when the test is updated. You've got documentation for that. So you'll see here's an ALF tab, general important dates. All permits are important dates, but not all important dates are permits, for example. So you have your permit tracking, you have your testing, even invoices that are associated with permits and testing. So now you can have a pattern of expense and cost that come with the testing to be able to report all your expenses for testing for the facility or even that testing type. So the reporting starts becoming more robust and meaningful as you compare these results. So in the testing, I can add new, and you can see all these fields are customizable in regards to drop down, which testing type it is. This is customizable by your services or the end user, the frequency, the request date, and I can associate files. So instead of recreating a new file every time I turn around for this requirement, I can update the file for when that file was actually active. So if it was a permit from 2019 to 2020, instead of replacing the requirement, I can just update the file in the period that was active, and instead of tracking them separately, they're combined. All right. So the important dates 2.0 allows me to export easily to Excel, CSV. So all these things are reportable at the site level as well as on the reports page where we can do these exports. So you can get a clear export of all testing events that have occurred, past due, even retesting events that come in. Now these things tie into activities, just like your alarms can create an activity, just like the mobile inspection can create an activity. And important dates, when it's coming due or past due, if there's an issue, you can create an activity spawned off that and define that template or action from there. So this has been a huge undertaking. It's been a long time coming, but anyone that has been tracking what needs to be done for the facility or facilities, important dates is going to resolve a tremendous amount of headache doing this on a spreadsheet. So, all right, anything you'd like to want me down on there, Dave?
I think that's good. Good review. ATG remote diagnostics and configuration. We're next.
Okay. So, you know, in my mind, I started a Kung Fu site, and I'm going to show you this just because when there's a problem.
You like what kind of Kung Fu?
Yeah, Gage Kung Fu.
Gage Kung, okay.
Gage Kung Fu. So Gage Kung Fu is a, you know, a little bit how-to exercise that I've done for a couple of years now, it seems. And when there's a problem at the site level, a lot of times people don't have the visibility. So instead of dispatching a technician, you could immediately go in and see if there's an issue, or maybe there's something you can do remotely to get the site back up and operational until you can get a technician on hand, such as being able to run a 3-gallon test to clear a PLD shutdown alarm. You know, these kind of things to enable the site to have less downtime. And being able to do this from a mobile phone, you know, computer, any kind of mobile device really empowers the technician real time. So here I've logged into a Gage as if in a console view, and I'm in a browser. These sort of things are very, very helpful. Being able to get into the Terminal Connect and run those same commands to the facility itself, like 200, or run the terminal commands, which most technicians are very familiar with. But they also have the ability to do config management. This is where we start deviating from, okay, here's a Gage, here's what it's doing, there's a problem, okay, I can go in and fix it, or I can at least temporarily fix it until I get a technician. But now I have visibility into what that Gage configuration is. What is its capability? What is it doing? So when we get into config management, a lot of times a technician may go on location, run a manual tank test for the client, and then they forget to put it back in CSLD. So next month, the client's missing CSLD. You can see that in the config management. So in the config management realm, tremendous amounts of not just being able to access the Gage to resolve an issue, but being able to really manage the Gage and fix bad programming and make it optimum where you can actually improve the client's uptime. I also run a config core report. This is an example of the new reports that we have, where you can actually see the site information, what features that site is capable of, tank information, lines, sensors, or anything that is programmed in this Gage. if you've ever been in a gauge, site level, going in and hitting the print screen for the site setup, that 8 feet of tape, this is the consolidated view of all of that in a nice friendly report under our report section. So not only do you have the ability to go in and change things config-wise, you have visibility to it and easy remote access for resolution. Okay?
What's a good use case where, I guess you mentioned one of them where like a technician maybe forgot to do something, and instead of redispatching the technician, of which the end customer might be mad at, you can just do this remotely.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a way to make sure that the changes that were done on the site were authorized, to kind of double check the technician, because, I mean, as a technician, you screw up sometimes, and it happens, I'm not perfect. I've seen crazy things happen, and being able to see that and report to your client, say, hey, these are the changes that we made, and here they are, and here's why. And then there's the cases where if you're monitoring the configuration, maybe someone monkeyed with the gauge on the site level that had no purpose of doing it, such as a driver putting in tank tilt just to make the BOL or the delivery match what he thought he actually dropped in the tank. So if someone is able to get to the gauge and potentially misprogram it, this allows you the extra levels of security and peace of mind that if you're managing that gauge for your client, you have control over that, so that there is a change, you're aware of it. And if you didn't do it, you want to make sure that your information is up to date. It just gives you control management in regards to any changes at the facility, because those changes may impact deliveries, such as a label on a tank. It may impact your release section where they disable CSLD. They may disable a sensor, turn the sensor into normally closed. There's a lot of impactful changes that it's just good to know about, rather than find out 6 months later when the regulator is asking you where you are with this. All right, what's the next one there?
So I think kind of wherever you want to do next. So we have like four more here. So we have frictionless fueling, perfect gallon, delivery planning, advanced forecasting, and then activities and maintenance with APIs. What do you think is the most impactful? We have probably time for maybe one more of these.
Well, delivery planning, I've kind of got that up right here. This is where everything's in fuel. You'll see which ones are coming down. We actually do a minute-by-minute forecast as far as time to run out. I can even expand this out and look at when I'm actually running out. So delivery planning, just if you're interested in more delivery planning, we can definitely schedule a follow-up with those things. I think that the perfect gallon and flow rate and frictionless fueling is probably a better topic to go into, just because a lot of clients are asking about why my bill of lading is not matching up, why am I out of variance, and being able to get that high level of visibility. So this is an actual site where we're feeding data that we've got the perfect gallon that is up and working. Here's a manifolded tank.
So real quick, everyone. So perfect gallon is our competitive product to the wet stock solutions on the market. It's a next generation wet stock management. The people that today, Warren Rogers, Light & O'Brien, Clearview, we have something that we think is much, much better, as we're using some different analytical techniques. Those folks and some other folks in the market have kind of essentially evolved from SIR vendors. We're attacking it from kind of a analytics, machine learning perspective, and some of the results are incredibly powerful in what we're able to do. So again, this is us remapping the tank chart down to the precision of the probe, automatically adjusting for the fact that the meters are always drifting open. So you're eliminating two of the biggest sources of errors, and then you can go from there. Instead of managing, again, variance down to 1% plus or minus 130, we're down into the single digits, like, at 100 basis points, you're at like 9 basis points, 0.09% or something like that. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, a lot of interest. You're saving fuel. It's like selling fraud software in banking. It's just you're saving fuel supply costs. So back to you, Clay.
Okay. So when we talk about variance, it's the reconciliation that you see daily. Most people do this on a spreadsheet. You've got interoffice personnel. And the reason I say this is such a compelling thing, that as far as an offering, that there are states like Texas, New York, Connecticut, Maryland, where you have 7 and 10-day reconciliation, which are required. And they're depending on the site level person to manually enter these things into a sheet or somewhere, and there's a high chance of miskeying or populating it incorrectly, which will still result in fines from regulatory agencies. Being able to give variance from a gauge like BR or an EDEM is one thing. Being able to map it with a tank chart that is more precise and more accurate allows you to reduce the variance that you typically see from the gauge from rounding and truncating. So if you look at this site that I've got on screen right now, not only can I show you the start of the inventory, the delivery, the what was dispensed, and the book value, and then your reconciliation. This is also in liters, by the way. If I expand this out, I'm now empowering the user to find out when there was an issue. I can track by period, as far as busy period, which periods had the highest variance. So when did I start having an issue from my control limit? You'll see reds and greens over here, which show you where you're going in and out of tolerance since the beginning of the month to that period. So you can see, like right here, minus 19 liters variance that occurred between 12:52 a.m. and 1:16 a.m. So in a 20-minute window, roughly, there's a 5-gallon difference somewhere. And so this is where you can start aligning where there was an anomaly to the actual time of the anomaly. So you have that ability to drill down to a very granular level, not just the actual reporting. Now, when we look at this total, you'll see that there was 180,000 liters that were pumped this month, and the variance was allowed to be 900 liters. That's like 0.5%, which is half of what the U.S. is. And with that level of precision, we're only off 13 liters. That's like 4 gallons of variance for a tank that pumps.
Like 3 gallons.
Yeah, well, 4 and 3 gallons. I was trying to be generous to the thing.
Not very much.
Not very much. And this is what we talk about when we talk about perfect gallon and inventory variance. I think that being able to provide variance is not just helpful for the delivery reconciliation and BOLs and those things, but it helps automate some of those processes to your clients so they don't have to rely on store-level personnel to enter this information. And you have an alert system, so when you start going out of variance, you're getting a notification. So you can be proactive and say, hey, I've seen the site's going out of variance. There's something going on. Maybe we need to restrap the tank. Maybe we need to come look at something. So that's really a key piece to Titan's data layer, is that any point of interest, any data layer, such as alarms, for inspections, if there's a part of the data that has a significant meaning or a threshold of interest, if you would, I can create an activity, and that activity can easily then be turned into a work order. So I'm just going to hit the activity real quick, Dave. So I only have an activity for this one. Let me go 4. I have an activity.
So as he brings it up, so the workflow is, I'm getting the data, I'm applying some analytics to it, whether it's perfect gallon or frictionless fueling or whatever. An activity is created because it's something that needs my attention, and then I can triage it in the activity, but then at some point I might need to create a work order. There we go.
And so that work order, I can easily click the button here, and it'll automatically create it into the work order and send it over. Now, that work order could be our maintenance system. It could also be other maintenance systems like Service Channel. We have an entire section under our miscellaneous where we talk about APIs. So like Simmons, Usman, PDI, SolveOne, Service Channel. We have these ID codes that are designed so that we can easily integrate to those systems and push through an API, back and forth communication. This is what we've got here. And I'll just end on showing the API page. We have 56 already well-developed APIs that we can match up to, from Service Channels to server results, tank information. And so when we talk about being a data layer, we're really good at collecting the data, doing some analytics against it, and we can generate and send that data to you in many different formats.
Great. So let's pause here. I guess I have some marketing folks in the room with me. Do we have any comments or questions?
Yeah, Dave, thanks. This is Rob. So been monitoring the question board. We've had a few questions come in. A lot of them are related. We'll start with this one. A partner asked that if we have clients that are really interested in Titan's platform and we want to refer those customers to Titan, how does that work and how does that benefit us?
Yeah, I think, so Rob Bowden, you might know, VP Marketing, also leading up we're kind of launching a new channel partnership program. He's leading it, so I contact Rob next step. In terms of benefiting you, I think we put a referral agreement in place, make sure there's some shared economics and you can benefit from doing it. And we're at a point now, Titan's been investing a lot in, go-to-market, and we're starting to get back to what we think is really large opportunities for service providers and partners. Rob will be leading that up on a day-to-day basis, and we'll put a mutually beneficial partner referral agreement in place.
Great. And the other one that's related to that is if they decide to white label Titan as their internal system, what is Titan's support around helping them implement that system at their client and train them and end users?
As much as they need. I mean, we're set up to do that. We can train them to do that. We can do that. We have a full implementation team, data loads. So I think everybody's going to be a little bit different. If you have no resources, we can do that on your behalf. We typically charge 2 to 3 months of the subscription fee as implementation fee, and sometimes we'll trade that off for just starting to charge for the subscription sooner. But we can absolutely support them in any way they want.
Great, thanks, Dave. Another question that came in was somebody that has a lot of internal forms beyond the state walkthrough inspections, and they were curious about also using Titan for that, maybe replatforming their own forms management on Titan for testing.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've talked to some of the larger testing vendors on and off over the years. So at this point, we have the ability, because obviously testing vendors are completing tests, those tests go into forms internally. We could create 1 million forms, the data can be fed and stored, you can manage, you could actually, you'd have any mobile device, you can conduct whatever test is, record the results, it gets fed into this common platform. If mapping a new form it's not like it's super easy, but it's more tedious than it is hard. So it'll take an analyst, 20, 30 minutes depending on the complexity of the form, but then it's done forever and you can use it as much as you want across your organization. So I think we would love to go do that. Right now we focus on inspection forms, whether they're state inspection forms or other inspection forms, but it could be anything. It could be the test results form, any inspection or audit or checklist, anything like that can be automated with this app, and then the platform can be used to manage the data, report on it, and inject some workflow into it.
Great, thank you. And then a question for Clay around alarms. Somebody asked if they can get real-time alarms from ATGs through Titan, or whether you have to wait for a poll or an event.
We actually implement both policies. We set up the gauges to outbound an alarm to us. That way we have real-time alarm notification. But we also poll the gauge frequently, whether it be every 30 minutes or every hour, so that we're establishing maybe there's a communication failure, because that in itself is an alarm where that site is maybe potentially offline, and maybe that's needs something to be creating activities for someone to investigate. Those sort of items that you're looking at, like connectivity and alarms, can also roll up to what we call our dashboard, which is probably another element we should have reviewed, because you can allow your users to manage by exception across release detection, connectivity from ATGs, alarms, facility requirements, what's missing, what needs to be done. So the whole roll-up of everything we discussed can go to the dashboard, and yes, there are real-time alarms, as well as being able to check and see if there's communication.
We should have mentioned the dashboard, right? So real quick on the dashboard, maybe scroll up a little bit. So we have more modules around other environmental things like waste material, hazardous waste, go down, like stormwater, water generators, permits. So these are all things related to compliance, some rule somewhere. If I had John Moran in the room, he could tell me about it. But so again, we're adding functionality. You can see what's going on for all these environmental rules. You can manage it at the dashboard, but then you can, again, as we talked about, we have a lot of workflow to dive into the details to manage it to completion. And connectivity, you just pause on that one. This is something where you can know what's going on with your ATGs. So again, we're very trying to be as complete and comprehensive as we can to get the data and make sure we're getting the data. And if it's not, we're identifying it as an anomaly quickly.
That's great. There was actually a question on that too. Do you have a dashboard that consolidates all this? And then one.
And the dashboard's configurable because this is like an oh my god dashboard, right? It's like all this stuff, right? So you can condense it to specific areas you care about, specific sites, and make it manageable. And because I don't think anybody would have a dashboard that's this large, except for Clay. But otherwise, yeah, absolutely.
And then targeting back real quick to Alarm AI, somebody mentioned that looks like a really powerful and useful tool for us, but it looks like it would be complicated to set up. Is that something that you guys can help us with, set up those alarms or train us to set up those alarms?
Absolutely. I think when I say expert system, I mean, what we can do is you may or may not have experts, depending on level of expertise, but it's essentially getting that expertise out from them into the rules. Now, there is kind of normally accepted rules. I don't think they change. They're dramatically different, right? Like, here's what I think is the best set of rules to classify this alarm as quickly as I can. But we can definitely help them set it up. We're not saying we have all the expertise here. I'm sure there's some internal experts and some of these service providers that know more than us. But the nature of the system is you just add the rule, it improves the performance.
Yeah, well, most service providers will have their own service level agreements based on those alarms. So they already have a list of alarms where they have the SLAs in place. So you can build those rules around that escalation process for those SLAs, not just those, alarms, but other alarms, and then you can escalate based on priority to the aging of the alarm itself. But yes, I would probably defer to the alarm management SLA and build the rule around that, and even though there are some standards like sensor field alarms.